Welcome to the Echoes of Europe and a series title we've now finally decided to call European Nights Revisited, where we look back on previous Champions League games or European Cup games from yesteryear. Tonight we're going to be looking at PSG against Chelsea from 2014-15. Why are we looking at this game? One, it meets the criteria of being a classic game. Two, they're of course about to play in the last 16 in 25-26. If you're listening to this game in the future, there will be no spoilers, although you probably should know all the results of everything by now. However, yeah, we felt like it was a really good place for us to jump in. We'd previously done the Decima, and this felt like a nice opportunity to do another game. We're in the last 16 stage now, and I feel like, yeah, that echoed quite nicely. So yeah, I'm Tim. I'm joined today by Scott.
Yep, that's me.
Fantastic. So yeah, we're going to be covering the first leg and the second leg. Let's go.
But before we get into the game, we do this now at the start of every single one of our podcasts, where we ask each other what kit we're wearing. So, Tim, I can see it's a PSG top, but tell me about your kit.
It is the 21-22 home shirt. I bought it because it had the Jordan Jump logo on it, and I really liked it. It is a nice shirt, I would say. It's got a nice. I like the little French finishes. I do love the Paris Saint-Germain badge with the Eiffel Tower. I think it is
It's very
class.
nice.
And I know that's not an unpopular opinion because I think PSG is basically a fashion brand now. The amount of people I see walking around wearing them, including my brother-in-law. So if you're listening, Callum, I notice your PSG trackies and that you wear. He has a very limited but emerging interest in football, and he owns a little bit of PSG gear. Um, yeah, I really like this shirt. I really like PSG. I visited their stadium a long time ago, and I've obviously seen them play the Reds. And yeah, cool team. Now, Scott, what shirt are you wearing?
I'm gonna ask you to guess the team name, mate. I'm gonna ask you to guess the team name, and what I really want is the proper pronunciation, please, if you can get there.
Mate, I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't got a clue what shirt you're wearing.
So, just tell me, I will tell you.
Can I just ask that? Did I buy that for you?
So this was a very special. This is the second episode in a row now I've ordered
I'm
something
about to say, second episode in a row that I've bought you
bought
what
by
you're wearing.
yourself. This one obviously is extra meaning because it was
People are going to
bought.
start talking.
They are, mate. It's bought, but this is where I hope you cross the rumors. It's bought, mate, after your wedding, mate.
It was a present, wasn't it, for you being
It was a
one of my
present.
best men. Shout out to my other best men, Garfield. He's a
Yes.
Liverpool fan, so slightly outranked you. But
Ah, mate, but yeah.
what
But he also
shirt are
likes
you
rugby more
wearing?
than me.
What shirt
So
are we wearing, mate?
I am
Are
wearing
you
a team
Mexican?
called yes. So is Mexican
Tijuana,
Guatemala?
Guatemala.
Guatemala. So they are called Club Social y Deportivo Xilahu.
It's a phenomenal shirt.
It's a phenomenal shirt. The collar is a bit higher for my liking, but because I feel like I'm wearing a choker, but it's pretty nice. Then their nickname is Los Super Chivos. And do you want to know why they're called the Los? Well, that's
Please tell me.
what that translates to, Tim?
Please tell me.
The Super Goats or the Super
The
Rams.
Super Goats, the
As you can
Super
see,
Rams.
there is a ram in the logo in the Club Quest.
It is sick, and I'm glad I bought that for you. One
It's
day,
a
somebody will actually return the favor by buying me a secret shirt from one of these places. So if anybody that knows me is listening, please buy me one. Thanks. So here we are, mate. We're in Paris for the first leg on the 17th of February, 2015. Ahead of the game, you've got PSG versus Chelsea. PSG were the, unsurprisingly, champions of France. You knew what was coming up.
yeah.
Champions of France. Really trying to, in my opinion, establish themselves amongst the European elite at this stage. In the previous season, these two had actually faced off, and Chelsea had gone through on away goals. So I felt like PSG were really trying to establish themselves in Europe. They were managed by Laurent Blanc, not a manager who really has gone on to do anything after PSG. I think he managed Lyon for a little bit as well as some clubs in the Middle East. I think he's made some quite controversial comments, so I don't think he's a great guy. Of
Yeah.
course, formerly played for Man United as well. Um, but yeah, I was doing a half decent job there at the time. Chelsea were the Premier League leaders at the time and would go on to win the well, it wasn't called the Carabao Cup. It was whatever the League Cup was called at the time, the Capital One Cup, I think. Yes, Capital One,
Yeah.
and they also won the Premier League under Jose Mourinho. Really, his last great year in terms of at the very highest level, winning the very highest trophies. Obviously, he wins trophies at Roma and Man United and that, but I feel like Chelsea obviously winning that Premier League. So at this point, I'd say this was a pretty good game, a pretty big game in Europe in terms of where they were, two heavyweights sort of going into it. Before we go through the teams, do you sort of agree that this is where PSG was really sort of trying to become a serious European contender?
Yeah, I think it was you touched upon their success in Ligue 1, and the aim for the ownership was to always become a successful Champions League team. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt like this was the moment that it felt like they could become that. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it
they,
felt like they could become it. I think is always the thing because obviously,
yeah,
spoiler alert, they didn't
yeah.
yet,
This is a
but it
game
felt like
that I
they
think
could.
showed that there were signs that something special was brewing. So
And for Chelsea, what Jose Mourinho has achieved in his career obviously is well documented and is really outstanding. And obviously, what he achieved at Chelsea to take them, he really did take them forward. But I reckon, now obviously this is just my opinion, but if you asked him if he could change one thing about his career, I think it would be that he won the Champions League with Chelsea. Personally,
I'd
potentially
agree.
he might say win it with Real Madrid, but I think with Chelsea, considering he had two bites at the cherry, he had two really, really good teams. Second, obviously, which we're about to go through now. But you look at that first era and then this second era. Obviously, the second era team is not as good as the first era team, despite some similar players. But they were challenged. Like in the year before, they'd got to the semi-finals of the Champions League and they lost to Atletico. Still, obviously, they took them into the Decima. That was such a close game, and the player obviously that probably stopped them reaching that final was Thibaut Courtois, who is now in goal for Chelsea, um, as he was on loan at that point. Um, but yeah, I feel like Jose Mourinho was sort of chomping at the bit to to really win that European. Because Chelsea, obviously, by this point, so in this point in history, Chelsea have won one European Cup. They'd won it 3 years previous under Di Matteo. Obviously, PSG at this point in time, no European Cups, no Champions League finals at all. So they are really trying to establish themselves at Europe's top table, and I feel like they weren't quite there yet. And I think some of and we'll go through the teams now actually. So for PSG that night, they played a 4-3-3. It was Sirigu in goal, Van der Veer right back, centre backs of Marquinhos and Thiago Silva, very good centre back pairing. Um, Left back of Maxwell, very good left back. Um, Interesting midfield. David Luiz actually played at the base. Um, so he would obviously drop back, but also then go forward because he was an attacking threat. Obviously, a former Chelsea player, was of course at Chelsea the year before.
Yeah,
With then Verratti, another really good centre midfielder, next to Blaise Matuidi, another really good centre midfielder. And then with a front three of Lavetti, who I think was a little bit underwhelming at times. Cavani, who was such a good Uruguayan striker, scored so many goals, and Zlatan Ibrahimović or Zlatan, um, leading the line for PSG. So obviously phenomenal. We're going to obviously go through a lot of those players a lot more now. The Chelsea team had Thibaut Courtois in goal, Branislav Ivanovic at right back, centre back pairing of Gary Cahill, very good player, and John Terry, very good player on his day. Obviously quite old at this point. I think he's 34. I think in
yeah.
this game, I believe. Left back of Dave, but more commonly
Dave,
known as Asperthwecker. Um,
Caesar.
Cesar. Um, Midfield three, Matic at the base. Um, very good player again. Ramirez, very good centre mid. Cesc Fabregas, low key, probably one of my favourite centre mids to have played the game. I really like him as a player. And then the front three was sort of Willian on the right, exciting winger. Eden Hazard, me and you were divided on him, and Diego Costa. as Liverpool fans once called him, the Elephant Man. But a very aggressive and very good striker. Another player, of course, who was at Atletico the year before when we were covering La Decima. Um, so yeah, it's a star-studded lineup for that first leg in particular. Um, Going into the game, as we've said, both teams doing really well domestically. Chelsea yet to play either of their finals, but are leading the Prem. Um, and yeah, so of those players that I've just named, um, who are the sort of key players that you see for each team that sort of stand out to you?
I think we'll touch upon it a little bit later in the episode, but I think across the two legs, I think the defense really stood up for me. I think there's a lot of
Yeah,
experience, a lot of structure in Chelsea, and likewise in a way the same to PSG. So I think obviously John Terry would argue you touched upon it. Obviously, it's in the later part of his career, but at this point he's getting applauded to left, right, and centre, and will go down as one of the best centre backs in Premier League history of all time. Like,
yeah,
but yeah, I thought both centre back partnerships for me stood out.
really strong.
Obviously, yeah, very, very, very strong. Obviously, PSG to me felt a bit more like the Galacticos. It was just a lot of big names that played together, whereas Chelsea was more system driven. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, what about yourself?
I think John Terry, I think English centre back wise, who've won the Champions League, I think he is the best. I think he's the best English centre half to win the Champions League. Very, very good player. Was definitely having a slight bit of a revival, I think, around this time as well. Um, I think he'd had a bit of a dip in
Yeah,
a couple of the previous seasons, but he is very, very good this year, and obviously captains Chelsea to the Premier League. Um, Next to him is Gary Cahill, who I think is one of the most underrated English centre halves
yeah.
in modern era because I think he's really, really good.
Do
I
you think
think he's
that's because
probably in the top 10 English centre
yeah?
halves.
Do you think he's underrated though because he was playing next to?
Yeah, because he's playing next to John Terry, yeah. And
Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think Gary Cahill was really, really good. Obviously, Champions League winner, both of them. Um, Gary Cahill, of course, actually played in the final, unlike John Terry. Um, but they were
full
both in
JT.
full kit by the end. Yeah. Before we any other obviously PSG players, I think we're going to maybe actually touch on Thiago Silva and David Luiz a little bit later on.
Yeah,
But any other iconic PSG or Chelsea players that you want to call out?
I mean,
Who had the most iconic player on the pitch as well? Actually, who had the most iconic player on the
I
pitch?
think he'll be offended if you don't talk about him. So you can't talk about PSG at this time without talking about Zlatan Ibrahimović. Albeit he did have a great performance still across the two ties. Um, but obviously he had the name, the star value. But you
Yeah,
mentioned it when you were talking about the lineup. I said,
I think he's 33 at this point. By the way,
yeah, ageless mate. Ageless mate.
he's definitely not ageless because he is 33
Yeah, but as
at this point.
it was. I think there was a clearance in the second leg where he looked about 13 with how high he got his foot up. Like, you know what I mean, so
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, it's very pretty. He's one of those names that I think that will go down in football history. So what about yourself? Anyone else to stand up?
Um, I'll leave you talk about the Chelsea one that stands out. Um, but in terms, Edison Cavani, I think I really loved him as a player. I really liked him. I was gutted when he went to United. Full disclosure, and I think he actually did a quite good job when he got a chance. But at PSG, I thought he was so good, um, and yeah, I really enjoyed him. When he was do, just scoring. It felt like big goals,
Yeah,
contributing. Okay, let's do a quick top three. I want you to rank these three Uruguayan strikers: Forlan, Suarez, and Cavani. I would chuck Nunes in there, but I feel like he doesn't quite make that three.
he doesn't quite make that for me, unfortunately.
Who's your top?
Uh,
Oh, who's your third? Who's your second? Who's your top?
ooh, I like that question. I think Luis Suarez is number one for me.
Yeah, yeah, he's number one. I
He's
would have
probably number
fought you
one.
if you'd said any different. Yeah,
Yeah, Luis Suarez. I think I have to. I know more about Cavani than I do Forlan, so I go Suarez, Cavani, Forlan.
yeah, I agree. I think that is that is bang on. I think Luis Suarez if you discount Messi and Ronaldo as not being strikers, I think if you talk about post R9, I think so. Post R9 and Henry, to be fair, big Henry fan over here. So after that era, up until now, I think Luis Suarez is the best striker in that period. I think he's one of the best strikers the world has genuinely ever produced.
Phenomenal player.
Phenomenal player. And what I liked about obviously Cavani, back to actually the game and the player that we're focusing about. Obviously, he's played for just that. He's played for it is three great clubs in Europe in terms of Napoli, PSG, and Man United, and he scored goals at each of them. He was such an exciting player at Napoli, and he scored like 78 Serie A goals in like 100 games. At PSG, he was like 138 goals. I think he scored in Ligue 1. Champions League wise, he managed to score quite a lot of goals in Europe,
Yeah.
and I think he was such a good player. But what about any Chelsea players that the iconic Chelsea players, obviously that stand out to you that we can discuss?
So the obvious one, which I think will cause a bit of debate between the two of us, is Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard, at the time, one of Europe's best creative wingers. Obviously, you might disagree with a lot of things about Eden Hazard, but I don't think that's one thing that you could disagree with.
No, I wouldn't
Um,
agree with that. At the time, I wouldn't agree. 100% agree with you at the time.
what about him? Don't you rate as highly as everyone else does?
Okay, do not get me wrong. And actually, while we're here, we're hoping to get a Chelsea fan on soon, potentially someone we know quite well. Not going to name him in case he doesn't end up coming on, but I know he's obviously a massive Hazard fan. I'd love to get his opinion, maybe even a standoff episode on him, because I think that would be more balanced. And as a fan podcast, that's important. So I will start by saying I've seen Eden Hazard score one of the best goals I've seen live by an opposition player against Liverpool for Chelsea. Brilliant. I think he's a really, really good player. I think people put him on too high a pedestal. I think people put him on greats of the game and put him on, Premier League all-time 11s and things like that. He isn't. And his numbers aren't there at all. And I think, although we did have a funny moment a few weeks ago when we were trying to look at how many Premier League goals he scored, and he definitely scored more than I gave him credit for. But he
I love
did only
that.
score 10 Champions League goals in his career. And I think for me, especially this season, 14-15, he's arguably one of his best seasons.
Yeah,
I think, he obviously scores the hat-trick as well in the Europa League final later on, for Chelsea in his final game for them, which is obviously an iconic thing. He scored loads of great goals, really great player, really exciting. I know his game was more than goals and assists, but his numbers are nowhere near the levels of your Salahs and other players like that, Ronaldo, like Gareth Bale, Luis Suarez, like
yeah.
Thierry Henry. I could literally list a lot more, but I think he's a really good player. I just do not agree with some of the hype that he gets, and I think a lot of the hype that he gets is because he played for Chelsea and the London media and the London focus that exists within this country. I don't think he is of the level, and I'm not even judging. I'm judging him on the Chelsea period. I'm not on about him going to Real Madrid and not being fit and being a little bit overweight and barely ever playing and not really contributing to any of the Champions League titles that he's won, because that isn't relevant, because it's not his fault that he was injured, and it's not his fault that Real Madrid spent 100 million on him and he was probably
Yeah.
finished by the time he ended up arriving there. But I think he was a really, really good player. But for example, if you said to me who was better, Sadio Mane or Eden Hazard, it's not a conversation. Sadio Mane is a much better player than him. But
Okay. Very
that's
good
sort of
player.
where
Very, very good
that's sort
player.
of where I'm at with it. But if you want to give a modern comparison, if you were like, who's better? Because obviously another player in the London media that gets a lot of limelight, Cole Palmer, Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard is a much better player than Cole Palmer. So
Yes.
if you think about the hype, I think Cole Palmer gets a similar type of hype that Eden Hazard got
God.
at the time. But let's move on and let's talk about the first leg in a bit more detail now. So in terms of the game itself, I thought the atmosphere in Paris is always really cool. But as always, we're going to start by talking about the kit. I really liked Chelsea's yellow and blue kit. Also, this is the second time I've said I like a Chelsea kit on our podcast so far. But as I said, even though I'm
You're a blue man.
biased, Clearly, I'm a closet blue. Yeah, I really like the kit. I really like the yellow kit. And I actually like the PSG home kit. I thought it was similar-ish to this, a lot more French. They used to have that red stripe a lot more going down the middle. What did you think of the kits for the first leg?
I like it. It was a nice contrast to the picture. So you have the navy blue and
It
the
was a
yellow.
nice
So
contrast.
so it was very very nice in the eyes. I particularly I like the collar on Chelsea's kit. I'm not normally a big fan of collars.
You do hate
But
colours.
I do hate collars. But I thought that Chelsea's kit for me that won the night. I think it was the best kit out of the two.
Yeah, I agree. And then, in terms of the game, I felt like you could see Courtois.
Courtois?
It's not his name. You could see Courtois' quality throughout the game. I
Yes.
feel like he made loads of saves, and he was huge. And it's really interesting watching that. Obviously, 11 years on, and he's still obviously that good, still making that many saves. And obviously, I think back to the 2022 Champions League final where he makes 10, 11 saves, man of the match performance, wins Real Madrid the European Cup. Um, and I thought it was I was really, obviously I knew it was good then, back then, but obviously with the benefit of hindsight, which is what this podcast gives us, I was really impressed. And
Yeah.
on the night, Chelsea had two shots and it finishes 1-1. And PSG had 14. They had six on target. I felt like Courtois was probably Chelsea's best player. Do you have any Courtois based thoughts?
I think he was exceptional. I think I said, if you want to sum it up one word, he's obviously, he's had, like you just mentioned, he's had a lot of those gigs since. But this was truly the first one where he showed his quality, and I think
In a
if not,
Chelsea shirt, I would say in the semi final the previous year for Atletico against Chelsea, that's when I first realised how good Courtois was.
yeah, how good he could be as well, right? So yeah, I think without him, obviously the tie could have been over in the first leg.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, it
And
wasn't.
and
But yeah,
then luckily it wasn't. And then obviously in terms of the game itself, Cahill provides such a cheeky flick, and as I said, great player, really
mate,
underrated.
do you think he meant it? Was that a,
Of
was that
course
a
he did.
was that a purposeful pass, or was it?
I 100% think that was purposeful, genuinely.
Really? Ah, mate, he wanted to put that in the corner himself, mate. That was not a pass.
Nah, 100% he meant that. And then Ivanovic, obviously, with another big goal. That was his fifth goal of the season, but it was his first in Europe since he scored in the Europa League final against Benfica for Chelsea. Obviously, it's only 2 years later, so it's not like it's a big long drought for a defender. But he had the knack of scoring big goals. I remember him scoring two at Anfield for Chelsea against Liverpool in the Champions League quarter final in 2009. And that was literally just after he'd arrived. He loved scoring big goals in Europe. Really underrated, not underrated at the time. Definitely got a lot of praise. But I think when we talk about all-time Premier League right backs, I feel like his name probably should come up a little more often. I think he was really, really
Yeah,
good.
fully agree.
And then obviously, Cavani gets a cheeky goal from a lovely cross from Blaise Matuidi, I think it was. Um, yeah, lovely. Uh, Lovely goal. And the first leg finishes 1-1. I th- I personally think Mourinho would have been happy with that. I think PSG would have been disappointed with 1-1. Do you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah. I think Mourinho went there for the draw, and
Yeah,
ideally a score draw. Obviously, at a time with the away goals rule, um, scoring away from home is a massive advantage. And I think that was we all know Mourinho the way he sets up his teams. Um, and I think that was he probably left Paris that night extremely happy and extremely confident of progressing into the next round.
I agree. On to the second leg, on to Stamford Bridge.
Moving on to the second leg. What before the game? What did you think would happen?
That's something we haven't asked. Do you remember where you were when you watched it? Because I've had to think back, and I'm pretty sure I watched the first leg in a bar in Bath. And I know your memory's terrible, so I'm gonna fill the space for us here. um, I'm
The
pretty sure I
last
watched the
time,
first game in Bath. I can't remember where I watched the second leg, but I know I watched it.
the last time we talked about a game in a year, I thought I was 14-15. I know for a fact I was 24-25 for this one. Just that's the year it happened. So I assumed I was either watching it in house or in work, but I can't remember. Funny.
So the second leg was played on the 11th of March, 2015.
Yeah.
At this point, I had no children,
No, no, no children.
no wife.
No wife. I was the same.
It's still the same. And then,
It's still the same.
so going into the second leg, yeah, I felt, I think Mourinho would have been licking his lips a little bit. And I think PSG would have felt the pressure. So the teams for Chelsea, the team for Chelsea was exactly the same, other than Oscar came in for Willian. Oscar, another player, obviously famously went to China, didn't he? And
Yes.
was I like 28, but he was a really really good player. I really liked him. I thought he was really good. Um, Coming on for Chelsea that night throughout various points as well, worth saying, was Willian at half time for Oscar, but also Kurt Zuma comes on for Chelsea,
The
as
cat
well
man.
as someone I completely forgot was at Chelsea this season, which I was a little bit, is Didier Drogba,
Yeah, came on the second half, didn't he?
because
No,
he'd
extra time.
left extra time, because he'd
Extra
left
time, yeah.
and come back. He left
Yeah.
Chelsea when they won the Champions League, and then he came back, I think, under Mourinho. But for PSG, they switched Marquinhos to right back. David Luiz dropped into centre back. Thiago Motta came in to play the DM role, obviously the former Juventus manager. And then Pastore started on the left over Lavetti. I do think, and Pastore is another one that I really liked, but I feel like he never fully hit the heights that he could have.
No.
Um, which I thought was interesting. For coming on for PSG that night was a young Rabiot. Recently, done in recent years, done really well for the French national team. Lavetti came on for Verratti at one point, as well as Van der Wiel, who had started in the first leg before Ajax and the Dutch right back. Our friend and contributor loves Van der Wiel, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, he loves all former Ajax players, really, doesn't he? But yeah, he came on. But yeah, second leg was so set up. I think at the time, if I remember correctly, I would have backed Chelsea to win this every day of the week.
Exactly the same.
Did that happen? Did it fuck?
Did it fuck?
So the game, obviously, the game plays out, and I feel like the first real talking point that we should cover. Did he refer to himself as a god? What did he say? He entered. What's his famous quote about being in Paris?
I don't know who you're talking to without even saying his name. Um, what the hell is this?
Full disclosure, I'm googling it. I came like a king. I left like a legend.
That's the, yeah, that you were.
If they replace the Eiffel Tower with a statue of me, I will stay. Well, Zlatan, in a massive game for PSG in the last 16 of the Champions League, you got sent off after 30 minutes. However, I will come to your defence. By the
Not a
way,
bad
I
card.
also think Zlatan is another player that is overrated. I think he was a top striker. I know you disagree with that. And I think
God.
he's a top striker. I don't think he's as good as some of his press that he gets.
No, I think his character adds to it. Definitely.
100%. I love his ego. I love his character.
It's exceptional. Like I said, it's exceptional. But I do think he's a quite good striker. Scored some of the most famous goals in like at international level and at club level. I think he's an exceptional player.
But yeah, the red card. I don't think it was a red card.
It's not a
Do
bad
you think?
card. I
Okay, I'm glad
mean,
we agree there.
yeah, if you look in the game, I think if VAR was in play for that game, I think there would be so many red cards. I think
I
earlier in the
thought
game,
VAR as well. I thought the
yeah, I
VAR.
think
Someone should
Diego
have been sent to
Costa and
Chelsea.
on
Yeah,
his former
Costa.
teammate, little diggy elbow. I mean, there was still, the game would be twice as long if I was around at that time, because there would have been so
Fully,
much to go through.
yeah, fully agree. And there's a quote from which I pulled from the BBC Match Report, which, by the way, for these type of rewinds is absolutely vital. So thank you to the BBC for keeping every single thing you ever do online. There's a quote from Ibra. When I got the red card, all the Chelsea players come around, he said. It felt like I had a lot of babies around me. So he describes the Chelsea players as babies following the game,
Yeah,
which I think was quite funny. Obviously gets sent off, which Yeah, and then the game then is considering that PSG had 10 men. I thought they did really really well.
Yeah, I think it made them change the way they set up a little bit. And
Yeah,
if anything, I think you often find it when a team goes down to 10 men, they become more difficult to beat.
yeah. No, I agree.
Um,
And sometimes, at the top level in this sort of game, I think it was big. I think for Chelsea, obviously, Gary Cahill, one of the players we've given a lot of praise to, scores a goal. Um, that Chelsea think, and I would have thought at the time, um, that would have sent them through. We talked about bizarre assists, obviously in the first one. Costa slices, spoons the ball, as I would call it, but for our international or even local viewers who don't understand what that means, obviously, like slices, he mishits the ball, and
yeah,
it lands to Cahill.
great
Um,
pass.
it was
He
fucking
meant,
hilarious.
he meant it, mate.
He was a bit of he was a bit of a dog sometimes when he Costa, but he was effective in this season as well. He was brilliant.
I
Um,
loved watching him.
he was Liverpool
I
almost
loved
signed
watching him.
him in 13-14. And I wish we did. I tell you, we'd have loved him because
You
I
could
absolutely
not,
would have
nobody
loved
could
him.
control that man.
Mate, imagine him and Luis Suarez up front together.
A bit of insight for you. Just, you
Oh,
might
what
be
was
aware of
that
this
then?
too. Yeah, a bit of insight. Obviously, Chelsea played Swansea City, and we were told, and part of the dynamic was to try and wind him up. That was disgusting. So yeah,
Idiots. I would never wind them up. Um,
yeah. Great
no, to be
character, great
fair,
player.
loved it. Yeah. So he obviously, and then late on, David Luiz, the former Chelsea player, rises up, and scores the equaliser, and he celebrates. He just left
Yes,
Chelsea in the summer, and he's about to rejoin them
I
in a year's
respect it.
time.
I
Um,
respect it.
he said after the game, he said, "I'm sorry for the emotion I showed. It was difficult because I was so happy to win, but I was also happy at Chelsea." Is what he said. Again, thanks to the BBC for their match report. He made 143 appearances at that point for Chelsea. He obviously goes on to re-sign for them and make more, and he'd scored 12 goals before making the move that summer for 40 mil. And obviously that's huge drama. They've had 10 men for like 60 minutes, obviously, when pretty sure Luis scores incredibly late because I'm pretty sure Cahill had scored quite late.
Yeah, they,
Cahill had scored in the 81st and Luis scores in the 86th. So yeah, very, very late. So then we roll into extra time. Um, Again, you're thinking 10 men, just like we saw recently with the Galatasaray Juve, that eventually the extra man advantage, especially in extra time, it's going to tell. You're thinking, this is going to tell. Surely, surely this is curtains now for PSG, even though they've equalised. Is it going to be too difficult? Eden Hazard gets a pen, converts it so nonchalantly. That was very calm, very, very good pen. Um,
easy.
it felt like the keeper literally didn't even try, which is a bit mad.
Yeah,
And then PSG onslaught, in my opinion, keep going, and up steps future, I would say potentially a Chelsea legend, Thiago Silva,
yeah,
a future Champions League winner with Chelsea, not PSG.
yeah.
So I believe he's captain as well of PSG at this time. If not, he definitely becomes captain. He rises
I think
up
he is
and
captain. Yeah,
and he scores and he goes absolutely mental.
it's such a beautiful
Um,
header as well.
it is really really good, and that and obviously back then, obviously he scores in the 114th minute, and PSG go through on away goals. Now I liked the away goals rule. You, I feel differently about it. Obviously it's gone now. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I think it's gone. It makes things better. I didn't like the fact that you could. PSG went through to the next round having not won the round of 16 because they didn't win. For me,
Mm.
you've got to win the game to go through to the next round. I think you drew like it's. I think it was a poor system in place. I think it's better now without away goals because technically you could have got you can get to the final having drawn most of the games as long as you
I
scored. It's
do. I do prefer it now. I do think it's better. I do think it did serve its purpose and was good at the time. I feel like it made teams attack away from home. But then what tended to happen is then obviously you see a lot more of a defensive second leg.
Yeah,
So I did like it at the time, but I do like the rule change now. But I did enjoy away goals. I enjoyed people doing maths in their head. I enjoyed going to the game with people like my dad, who found the away goals rule incredibly confusing, and I'd have to explain to him. It was great fun having a bunch, talking with men and women
yeah,
around you and children, and trying to explain Liverpool are going through or going out, or
yeah.
you know. And I've
I
seen
mean,
Liverpool get knocked out on away goals, and I've seen us go through. So, but I did enjoy
yeah,
it.
yeah. I'm glad it's gone. I think it could have been confusing. It was quite easy to understand, but I'm glad it's gone. I think it's made the modern game much better. It's made games to watch more exciting as we see less of the. Let's just we're 1-0 away from home. This or sort of thing. Like so.
Yeah, and then sort of closing thoughts on the game as well. Thiago Silva gave away the pen. We forgot to mention as well that Eden Hazard, and anybody gets the redemption with the winner.
Yeah.
So that felt quite big for Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
Um, PSG would go on to get knocked out in the next round by by Man City, I think it is. Um, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
The fact they didn't, that this meant very little in the grand
Nothing.
scheme of things.
Yeah.
So, in terms of last 16 games, where do you think that this tie would rank amongst last 16 games?
It's difficult to say because obviously it's from a different time.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but I
noticed the
think that
ball was in the air a lot. And actually, one thing I did notice was I felt like PSG played football like a Premier League team. I felt
yeah,
like they were quite physical, and they obviously, I think with the Zlatan approach, especially in the first leg, they were quite aerial, lots of crosses,
yeah,
and the ball felt like it was in the air a lot.
yeah. I think that both teams had a very strong aerial presence tonight, so I think there was a good aerial battle all over. But no, I think it definitely ranks up there. So whether I'd put it in the top 3 or 5
Top 10
I
last
don't think.
16s, would you say top 10,
Yeah, potentially around them
top 20?
towards the top 10, top 15. Um,
Yeah,
and
I
obviously,
think it's a good one.
when you got a bit of controversy, a bit of late goals, and
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
mentioned, Tim,
10 men.
late goals at 90 minutes. PSG spent, I think it was 91 minutes with 10 men in a massive game. So when there's those sort of like factors to a game, it will always be remembered fondly. And obviously with the drama of the away goal rule as well, that helps it be remembered. Yeah, would you rank it roughly the same, or would you?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say top 20.
yeah,
But yeah, and then there were some interesting quotes there at the end from Mourinho as well that I forgot to mention, so I'll just go through them now. He said our performance was not good enough. The opponent was stronger, coped better with pressure. We tried to win, but the moment they had 10 men, we felt too much pressure. He added PSG deserved it. When a team can defend 2 corners and concedes 2 goals to corners, they don't deserve to win. Obviously, talking about Chelsea there. And then he finished off by saying, if we win the Premier League and the Capital One Cup, it will be a fantastic season, which they did. And it was a
yeah,
fantastic season for them. But they
yeah,
didn't win the Champions League under José, and I'm sure that bothers him because
yeah,
this felt like a good opportunity for them. Barcelona, if you're interested, go on to win it against Juve in the final. Luis Enrique's Barcelona. Luis Enrique, who is now in charge of PSG and is linked to the Chelsea job quite a lot. But yeah, yeah, just sort of an interesting, interesting thing there. All right, sort of to round this off, we started talking about centre backs quite a bit. John Terry, Gary Cahill, Thiago Silva, David Luiz. Which centre back was the best across this tie? Do
I
you
think it's
think?
quite an easy answer. Man. It's got to be. You've got to mention Thiago Silva.
Even though he gives away a pen,
He scores the goal.
he does. I think he also is the best, but I just wanted to be a little bit contrary to that. And do you think at this point in time, I appreciate we are looking back 11 years ago, but do you think he was do you think he was the best centre back in the world in 2015?
It's difficult there because the
I think
French
he
league
was.
got a lot of shade. So and it still does. So you take that sort of thing with the pitch sort of like, but he showed his quality throughout the season, and I'd have to agree with you. At that time, he was arguably one of the best defenders in the world.
Yeah, I think he's definitely up there. I think he probably is. If you remember, in the previous year, obviously it was the World Cup. Brazil lose 7-0 to Germany. He's suspended, doesn't play. And that was a big deal made. Obviously, David Luiz does play. And for the second podcast, I mentioned Andy Christ.
Exceptional player.
I'm enjoying the running themes, but yeah, it's been quite fun looking back on this game. I'm looking forward to the game, obviously, that's coming up now in the last 16 between PSG and Chelsea. Yeah. I think it's going to be a really good tie. It's the exact same order as well. PSG at home, and then Chelsea at home for the second leg. I feel like
what's the prediction?
I think we've said that we think PSG will edge it. One final sort of closing thought for us. Sorry, I thought it's a question. How many? So looking at the Chelsea team, I'll ask myself this, if you want. How many of the current Chelsea squad get in the current Chelsea? The team from then. If football is played today, not then. So we'll look at it that way.
So goalkeeper.
I was going through.
Yeah.
Courtois obviously is definitely in the Chelsea team.
Easy one.
Ivanovic is in the Chelsea team. Cahill's in the Chelsea team. Terry's in the Chelsea team. Azpilicueta is in the Chelsea team. I would probably go with Cole Palmer on the wing over Oscar or Willian. Because I'm cheating slightly.
Okay.
I would go with Caicedo ahead of Ramirez, and I would actually play Reece James as the other midfielder ahead of Matic.
Interesting.
I wouldn't swap Enzo for Fabregas. I think Fabregas is not a much better player, but is a better player. And in terms of striker, it's really difficult because 14-15 Costa is really good. I do really like João Pedro, though. There's something about him that I do really like as a footballer.
Yeah.
They're both Brazilian. I would potentially go João Pedro. In 2026, I think he would be better.
Yeah,
than a 2015 version of Costa.
Yeah. I don't think there's much there. I just agree with Clancy. Obviously, the left wing stays the same, yeah?
Hazard, yeah. Obviously, he stays the same. Obviously. It's gone on record how much I rate him. The PSG-wise, I think I think the majority of their team now gets in over this team.
Yes.
Would you take Thiago Silva?
Yeah.
Does anyone else get in?
Marquinhos, mate.
I mean, he's still there.
He's still there.
He's still there, isn't he?
But no, I'd agree with you. I think the current PSG team are, and as obviously, as we all saw last season, absolutely phenomenal. Ballon d'Or winner Dembele. Yeah.
Neves.
I think what's better about this PSG team is they're a team.
Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, Doué or Barcola. So would you not put? I'm surprised you haven't said to put Ibra in.
I think if you put prime Ibrahimović in this team, it would be scary. Because you can say his name better than I can, but PSG's right winger is one of the Kvaratskhelia. He's one of those wingers that hasn't had the childlike mentality taken out of him, where he just runs at players to take out players.
He's so good. He plays on the left.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. Yeah. But
he actually is both fit. He can use both.
He's both fit, yeah. But I think Ibra is probably the only one that Ibra and Thiago Silva is probably the only two. Sorry, not the only one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Question. Let's put Ibra in and let's put Thiago Silva in. I mean, then having your Doué or your Barcola off the bench,
scary.
I think that's insane. I think it's crazy, really, to sit there. I think maybe we're underrating Verratti a little bit there because he was very, very good. So maybe Verratti actually gets in as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like PSG's midfield, but I think Verratti was actually really underrated on these shores, potentially. But yeah, really interesting. Really, really interesting. It's also really interesting when you actually look at that PSG team for one last time. How many of them didn't go on to win the Champions League? As in, only Thiago Silva and David Luiz in that entire PSG team finished their careers. David Luiz has already got a Champions League winners medal. He doesn't obviously win another one. Finished their careers with the Champions League winners medal. When you compare that to the Chelsea team, every single player, apart from Cesc Fabregas and Diego Costa, win the Champions League or have won it at this point.
Yeah.
In fact, only Courtois and Hazard will go on to win it from this point. But
A few times.
Courtois definitely a few times and deserves it.
Exceptional goalkeeper.
But yeah, it's been a great pod. I've really enjoyed looking back on the game. And yeah, here's to the next one. Allez les Bleus.
Me and Tim were just having a little further debate on Eden Hazard. So I'm gonna say some players now, and he's gonna tell you whether they're better or worse than Eden Hazard. Scott Sinclair.
For that hat trick at Wembley against Reading for Swansea, he's obviously better. No, obviously, yeah, Hazard's clear.
Jack Grealish.
So I think they're quite similar players, aren't they, in terms of profile, in terms of hype? Eden Hazard's better than Jack Grealish.
Wayne Routledge.
You got any more serious ones, or?
Listen now, mate. That man had great calves. Ryan Giggs.
Oh, Ryan Giggs is better. Come on.
There we go. I'll
tell
take
you,
it with.
there is one more though, who, and this is maybe where the debate stems from. Philip Coutinho at Liverpool, just like we're focusing at Hazard at Chelsea. I think Coutinho's better. I felt there were similar players, and I felt Coutinho has more of a winger. Coutinho played a lot more centrally for Liverpool when he was important. I feel like Coutinho was better, and obviously goes on to win the European Cup with Bayern and contributes slightly more than Hazard does for Real Madrid with his European Cup. So
that's a take I can respect.